Hello and welcome to Tremaine Sci-Fi Hour. Today we are discussing the new Disney Plus series Kenobi. And don't forget to, if you enjoy this content, to go check us out on Facebook at Tremaine Sci-Fi Hour and check us out on Instagram, Tremaine Sci-Fi Hour. No shit. Right, okay. So Jag is our resident not knowing, well, sorry, I should say Jodo is too, but we don't have a lot of Star Wars fans hardcore Star Wars fans with us today, so just me. So Jag, as a normie, how did you find the world that you were immediately brought into?
Yeah, so I did like the Star Wars movies. The first three, the second three, they're all pretty good. So, I'm not a fan. I didn't get into the legends, the crazy lore, all the side stories, all the Amake stuff. But I do like Star Wars. It's good. It's fun. Um, from what you'd said, as I was going into it, I was expecting the recap to be a lot longer and more dragging. I think they did that reasonably.
Yeah,
It is made for people who've seen Star Wars, so just a quick little reminder of, hey, this is where people's motivations be coming from.
yeah,
Very nice.
there's still good in them,
Um,
Obi-Wan.
I do have questions for how you felt about things, or
Right,
what you think their reasons for doing it in a certain way would be.
right.
Um, well, I suppose first we should say, are we doing
Oh yes.
spoilers?
So there will be spoilers in this episode because we are firm believers that spoilers don't ruin things. Also, because you know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah,
We
so we know
know
specific people who are going to survive the
we
series
we know
because they
that
were in A New Hope.
we know when certain characters arrive. And now, okay, this is your chance. If you don't want spoilers, this is your chance to turn off the episode, go have a watch, and then come back. I know you won't, but still.
This is just
Um,
for the first two episodes. That's where we're
First
up
two
to at the
episodes.
moment.
So by the time this is released, there should be a third episode out that we haven't seen yet. So, okay. So so this is something that Star Wars struggles with because it's hard to do what they did in the originals with like twists and turns when there's a set amount of things that need to happen. So for the prequels, for example, Anakin needed to become Darth Vader. Obi-Wan needed to go into exile. Yoda needed to go into exile. The Jedi needed to be destroyed. The Republic needed to become an empire. Palpatine needed to become disfigured and the Emperor. And a lot of things needed to happen in three movies. And the first movie, I know it's controversial for some people because they think it was. Well, you said that you can watch it without missing anything. I disagree with that. I think Qui-Gon is quite important to a lot of the new stuff. But I think if you were just watching the movies, that it's true that Qui-Gon, and then also I think some of the background about Obi-Wan and Anakin is quite important. Understanding that he was a slave, understanding that he was a pod racer, and that this is pod racing. So I think episode one was quite important, but I think this is also the same with Kenobi, where it's very hard to have twists and turns because you need new characters, and those new characters we assume are either going to die or are going to be incapacitated in some way. But now with the new Disney way of doing things, people survive for a lot longer and tend to be around for strange amounts of time. So, for example, I was telling Jag about Ahsoka because he hasn't seen the Clone Wars, and so Ahsoka, we all assumed when we were watching it was going to die at some point because she wasn't in the prequels. It made We didn't even know Anakin had a apprentice because he didn't. But she survives all the way to, I think, the Mandalorian, and even probably beyond that. So she lives for quite a long time after Anakin and after all what I consider to be the Skywalker saga. So what we have is some of these characters need to survive. Leia obviously was needing to go back to Bail Organa. Bail Organa needs to survive till the destruction of Alderaan. Or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. That one's actually up for debate, I think. But yeah, I think Leia certainly Leia certainly needed to survive. Obviously Obi-Wan needs to live, but he also needs to be put through his tests because he needs to become a lot wiser by the time it gets to episode 4. And so that brings me on to my first question for, well, one of my first questions for Jag. Going in, how did you find Obi-Wan as the main character? Because for a long time, it's been Skywalkers that had to be the main characters for Star Wars series.
Well,
How
the
did you?
movies has always been about the Skywalker legacy.
Yeah.
Um, and then, from my understanding, the side stories always focus on other aspects. And I do
Well, yeah.
like when systems, works of media do explore those side stories. With Ender's Game, I liked Ender's Shadow. So, coming into a series called Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was expecting that. It would be weird if I watched The Mandalorian and was like, but where's Luke?
Well, he's actually in the Mandalorian.
I haven't watched The Mandalorian.
I haven't either. I just know that he's in it. So,
But anyway, Ewan McGregor does a great job. I do wonder about some of the choices, but I feel like a lot of that is because I don't know all
well,
the background stuff that people like yourself would be coming in with.
go on. Give us some of your like choices.
Uh, Order 66. Do you think the younglings made it out?
I think they were either captured by the Empire and turned into Inquisitors, or they were killed.
Yeah.
I think the lady that is hunting Obi-Wan is in some way connected to those younglings. That's my theory, at least. Or so we have more Order 66 scenes from video games, the Clone Wars, Rebels, a lot of Order 66, Bad Batch, and things like that. So Order 66 originally was just that movie scene where Anakin marches into the temple and starts killing people, Jedi. And then we also have the scene where the clones turn on their Jedi generals and start gunning them down. Um, so the expansion of Order 66 has been quite interesting because obviously they had to accommodate for some Jedi, more Jedi surviving than just the 10,000 that, well, sorry, the 9,500 or whatever that died. Um, so for this series, they introduced at the very start a scene where the Jedi younglings are practicing their sort of movements
Kung
and their
Fu,
kung fu sort
karate.
of
Yeah.
karate things. And obviously, the Jedi being very linked in with Japanese and Chinese traditions. Plucked from Chinese and Japanese traditions in kung fu and samurai sort of class of things. Um, what I think we get in that scene is the idea of the chaos from Order 66 and also the sort of randomness of how people survived. So, we see a lot of Jedi survivors. So, for example, the Grand Inquisitor, who's the guy with the big white head, um, he he was a temple guard, which is a very prestigious role, but also a servitude essentially, because you're not a Jedi, you're not going out and doing cool things. So he betrays the Jedi Order. I know that. I think that's the extension of my knowledge about the Grand Inquisitor, but he's in Rebels, which is a sort of Clone Wars like series that circles around a bunch of rebels going around trying to, well, they're trying to become proper Jedi. It, the others are just trying to help bring down the Empire. And so, what we find is just, I mean, going back to Order 66, what we find is when if the younglings survive, they don't survive either well, or one of them was probably the Jedi that gets killed in the very first episode, gets strung up. Or you'll find that one of them is the lady that's hunting Kenobi, as I said, or you'll find that they've just died, or we're going to see them later on in the series. I think is the likely answer to that. Anything
Yep,
else?
possibly. Yeah, so that scene kind of gives me the feeling that the students escape, but I do wonder, like, it's Disney now. Are they going to show children being chopped apart?
Well,
Probably not.
well, no. So we haven't seen
They'd love to
children.
kill parents.
They do love to kill parents. So we haven't actually ever seen children getting chopped apart in Star Wars. We've seen, not imitation. What's it
I
called?
think the closest came was probably the hologram, where it's like he went in and he killed all the younglings. There's a hologram of him going in and just like approaching them and stuff,
No, no. So
and
it's
it's
this.
very clear he chops them up.
The closest scene would be the one where they're in the council, where there's all the younglings in the council room, and one of them goes, Master Skywalker,
Yeah.
Master Skywalker, there's too many of them, what are we going to do? And then he ignites his lightsaber, and it's like, oh, she.
I do recall them going back to that with a hologram
Yeah.
at some
Oh,
point,
okay, yeah. So,
but maybe I'm mixing up things Mandela effect style.
yeah. So, in the hologram that they look at, so Obi-Wan and Yoda, when they get back to the temple to warn the remaining Jedi not to come back to the temple, so Yoda goes into the security system and says something along the lines of, "You'll only find pain in the security system," and that's when that's where they see Anakin has fallen to the dark side, and he was killing. I think he kills some Jedi Masters while he's like on the hologram. He's like got one by the throat. He's stabbing one through the chest. He's
I know there's a hologram of Palpatine doing the "Rise, you are now my apprentice," and it's like, oh, he's turned.
oh shit. Oh, and it was Darth. Oh fuck. It was Palpatine.
Um, I suppose we'd move on to that and be like, well, how about the actual the world?
Yes. So
Um,
Tatooine is a shitty place, but yeah.
yeah. So at first, when I saw where Kenobi is working, I was thinking like, oh, it's because it does this big pan, and I was like, oh, this is some sort of sand tuna that they use for shelter, and they've got like a factory underneath it. It should be more desiccated or ripped apart by the, and then it turns out they're just, you know, butchering it. So that made a lot more sense. I will say the Grand Inquisitor's sort of introduction scene. As I said, I've watched the main movies.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Rebels. I haven't played Fallen Order. So for him to come in and go, "Do you know who I am?" Look to camera. We are the Inquisitors. An Inquisitor is someone who, I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was But I did need to know who they were. I do
Right.
prefer show not tell, but how would they do that in a TV show episode? Uh,
Well, so I suppose the idea is if you haven't seen Rebels or if you haven't seen, actually, I think that's it. Rebels is the only one I think with Inquisitors besides
the game
Fallen.
Fallen
Yeah,
Order, yeah.
Fallen Order has them, but you know. So I think if you look at how they introduced them, for me, I knew immediately who they were. I knew that they were going to
Yeah.
be in the show. I have pre-ordered the Lego set for the Scythe. So I immediately knew going in that that was going to happen, and I knew what the Inquisitors were. I knew that they were an inquisition against the Jedi. I knew that they were working in part with Darth Vader. I also knew that Darth Vader had been hunting Kenobi for 10 years because in the comics and in a lot of the stories about a lot of the canon, they talk about they have Darth Sidious confront Vader about about him hunting Kenobi so religiously. So
Mm.
he wants him to not focus on Kenobi. He wants him to focus on the Empire and fixing things and bringing order to the galaxy. And so when when you see this new lady with an obsession with Kenobi, that could be an inclination that she is either ambitious and trying to win favor with Darth Vader. It could be that she has a pre-existing relationship with Obi-Wan, and in some way she feels he betrayed her. It could just be that she was a former Jedi, and they never they she feels abandoned by them. She could also be just a character who was affected by the Clone Wars, which is also somewhere people who haven't seen the Clone Wars um, may find difficult to sort of get that why the Jedi are now hated and why they're now being hunted and why people are going along with it is because during the war, during the Clone Wars, they were painted as the ones continuing the war, as the ones leading the war, leading the destruction, leading to shortages and things like that. So they were sort of scapegoated into being the ones. And then, so after the war, in Palpatine's speech, where he says, you know, and the first galactic empire, when he says that, that's also part of a speech where he is revealing the Jedi were the ones leading the separatists and were trying to overthrow the Republic. And so he reveals quite a bit about about the Jedi, and so the Jedi are now pariah because they are because they're seen as war criminals now. And in the Outer Rim, where Tatooine and oh no, I think Tatooine's in the Outer Rim. Um, in Tatooine and the planet that they go to, in the sort of gang planet, is the reason that they're willing to hunt Jedi is because they think the remaining Jedi are now weak, or they no longer have the authority of the Republic with them. You know, there's bounty hunters that have killed hundreds of Jedi. I think Cad Bane, who's the blue guy from Book of Boba Fett, uh, Jango Fett, as you'll know, he was notorious for being able to kill Jedi. So yeah, that was so the Inquisitors. The point of the Inquisitors is always to be hunting. They're meant to be killing the remaining Jedi, making sure no new Jedi are made, making sure the Jedi Order is destroyed completely, and it is now pretty much destroyed. And that's I feel they're going to be the minions and sort of somewhat the second fiddle villain. I doubt Vader is going to. So this is the question I think is on a lot of people's minds: is Vader going to fight Obi-Wan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough for that.
So
We see him in a, what do they call it, a Bacta tank? Bacta tank?
back to tank, yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of we see him connect with Kenobi, realizing Anakin has survived. So when the lady's shouting at him, "Oh, you don't know he survived," she doesn't realize that it's Anakin Skywalker that he's really connecting with, and not. And then he connects with Vader, and so what the question is the fans would love Obi-Wan to fight Vader again. The problem is Darth Vader says in A New Hope, "The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." And then it's whether or not how far we can stretch that particular line, because you could say that Vader is still learning in this scenario. He's still learning to control himself, still learning to trust in his instincts and things like that. But you could also argue that, well, when Anakin left him as the apprentice, that was the final time he was the learner. He learned his lesson by getting his limbs chopped off.
So do you see him in the Bacta tank as being he's still regenerating, or as part of the thing where he just likes to get out of his life support armor, and that's the only place he can survive outside?
I think it also has to do with healing him. So I think what we've seen him
So
in the
he's
back.
still healing at this point.
Well, yeah, because you know how he's red and like
Hmm.
still burnt quite badly in the thing. You have to remember at the end of Return of the Jedi, he's grey
Yeah.
and he can talk somewhat, and his body's sort of starting to heal.
So you think it just took that long?
Yeah,
They've been in there for 10 years now.
yeah. So he's been healing. He's been, I think also I think there is something to be said about wanting to get out of the life support suit, because I imagine what it would be is they say that Darth Sidious put a sort of Sith curse on the helmet so that he could only see a certain way. There's some sort of, I can't quite remember the story that well, but that was the idea. So yeah, the Bacta tank is definitely just, I think for me it's just for dramatic effect.
No.
There's nothing scarier than seeing this burnt sort of corpse-like creature then open his right yellow eyes, and then it's like, oh shit, Kenobi. And so something that we also must discuss. Do you know that Maul survives?
Yes.
Now, do you know how Maul dies?
Uh, dies after he survived, or
Yeah,
dies
dies
the
after he
quote unquote
survives.
first time where he's cut in half?
The final time he dies.
Not specifically.
Okay,
I don't know how Spider-Man dies.
So basically, through the Clone Wars, Darth Maul is trying to cut out his own criminal empire. And then I should show you this, and this is a fantastic duel because it's between Palpatine, Savage Opress, and Darth Maul. And basically, Palpatine shows up in a hood and with two lightsabers and fucks them up, kills Savage, and then captures Maul. And in the comics, Maul then goes on to find Mother Talzin, and that's how Mother Talzin eventually dies. And then he's trapped on a planet for the remainder of for the until he's discovered by Ezra and Rebels. And so when he's discovered by Ezra and Rebels, his his he's sort of become quite resigned in his fate. He knows he has nothing now, and he has no and he has nothing. And so he knows one thing though, he wants to kill Kenobi. And so what happens? So there's a series of events that happen to him discovering where Kenobi is, and there's this very short but epic duel between them. And basically, what happens is, so what we see in episode 1, where Qui-Gon is killed, is basically Maul hits the saber up and then smacks him in the head with the hilt of the lightsaber, which stuns him and then allows him to get stabbed in the stomach. What happens in Rebels is Darth Maul attempts to do the same thing to Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan dodges it and slices through his lightsaber and cuts through into Maul's heart, I think is what he cuts into. And so what we get is a sort of idea that now the Jedi are learning. And now Obi-Wan is learning, because he's basically Alec Guinness at this point. He's got the white hair, he's got the voice of Alec Guinness. No longer is it Ewan, it's now Alec Guinness. And so that sort of translates to the Jedi, and Obi-Wan is now learning, the Jedi are learning, and the Jedi Order will be changing. That does get fucked up slightly by the sequels, but we won't talk about that. There will be plenty of that when I talk to Archie next about Kenobi.
Do you expect to see Maul in the Kenobi series?
I think there's a chance. I don't expect it. I think there's a chance it'll happen, just because they love to throw Darth Maul into things. Like, it wouldn't make any sense for him to fight Obi-Wan. It would make sense for them not to meet each other. So in the Clone Wars, for example, the series, the Anakin and General Grievous never fight. And that's because of the line in Revenge of the Sith where he says, "General Grievous, you're shorter than I expected." So that's meant to be the first time they meet.
Yeah.
So they actually set that so that Anakin never encounters General Grievous, which is probably... There's lots of canon explanations for that. There's one where Darth Sidious forbids him fighting Anakin because he doesn't want his prize damaged.
Okay. I suppose back to the Kenobi series.
Yeah.
Where should we go from there? So we've got how do you feel about the Nari character, the guy that the Inquisitors are first after? The new Jedi from Tatooine.
Right. Yes. So he is an example of why the Jedi failed. That's how I see him. So
the code of Jedi.
Well, not just the code of the Jedi. The fact that they cannot be patient. Patience was key to his survival.
But they're supposed to eliminate their emotions, Tremaine.
I think we know how Jedi are trained changes frequently.
And they're often just fooling themselves when they say that they've mastered.
It's not just emotion. It's not emotion that you're meant to disconnect from. It's meant to be attachment. So you are meant to feel emotion for some people, but you're not meant to feel like you've lost anything when they die. And that's ultimately why they fail. Because when Anakin feels he's going to lose Padme, he is sucked into the dark side because he feels the Jedi cannot help him.
Which is not wrong.
Well, it is, because Palpatine through joining Palpatine, he kills Padme.
Yeah, but
If
I mean,
he
like,
had,
they would tell him to let go of
yeah.
that
So
grief.
not just that, but also there's arguments that if he had stayed in the council room, he would have become a Jedi Master after Mace Windu came back alone. So he left with 3 Jedi Masters and would have come back alone. And there's questions of how that would have been handled because Palpatine essentially had control of the Senate and the courts and everything. So it's questionable how the Jedi would have played that off. Like, you just killed the Supreme Chancellor. Yeah, we know he might have been a religious zealot, but what evidence do you have? Blah 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 blah. And so Anakin very much needed to make that choice, but so the problem is through choosing the dark side, he decides that Padme is going to die, essentially. Because only through those visions that he has. So when he goes to Yoda to say, I'm having these visions about someone I care about dying, and Yoda says, don't feel bad for them joining the greater force they are, he doesn't feel satisfied with that answer. And a part of that is a reflection of why Anakin probably shouldn't have been trained as a Jedi. Is because he was too emotional. He was too rash. He was too irrational. He was too.
They started too late. He'd already developed.
Well, not just that. He also had been traumatized.
True.
He was a slave. He was a slave to a very slimy, greasy kind of guy. He was bullied on Tatooine. He was he was bought out of slavery, but his mother was left behind in slavery. And then he holds his mother as she dies. It's all sorts of things. So when sort of like how the Star Wars community traumatized the actor that played young Anakin. Yeah, if you bullied young Anakin, fuck you. He he is now very severely mentally ill and has been to prison because of you assholes. Um, just because he quote unquote ruined your childhood. Okay, so back to the
If you gotta blame someone, blame Lucas.
no, 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 no.
It's his work. He decided how it goes, and if that bothers you, he's the one who did it.
Yeah, but that still
You
doesn't
shouldn't be
justify.
bothered.
You shouldn't. One, you shouldn't be bothered. Two, do you really need to bully people to the point of, you know,
Breakdown.
breakdown? Like, you know what? Let's just take a quick aside to talk about that because I do feel quite passionately about this because a lot of people in the prequels got completely shit on for their role in what. So this is something I wanted to ask you actually because you were around when they were coming out, when the prequels are coming out.
The prequels, yes.
Now, so they were made for you essentially because you were what, 10 years old when they came out?
So they were kind of made for me.
You would have been.
I think a lot of the focus kind of spread for the prequels, and I think that's what caused problems for some people.
Right, but I also
So,
think
yeah.
a big part of it was the critics were the only ones that had a voice at that point.
True.
And Lucas was always controversial because he rejected Hollywood and he rejected. Well, he didn't reject money because he certainly loves money. But he sort of, if you like, the prequels have sort of gained popularity as people have been able to voice their opinion on the prequels. People who are not part of the Hollywood elite, people who are not part of a film industry, they're not part of a sort of elite. They're part of just the public. And as that sort of happened, you've noticed that the prequels have gone up in popularity. Now, that could also coincide with the children who watched the prequels and enjoyed them becoming adults. That could also reflect a change, and they've sort of matured a bit. Because with the Clone Wars, with a lot of the setups with it, it becomes a lot more of a fun part for people. But yeah, so back to it. So, when they were coming out, did you enjoy them? And if you did, was there a sort of backlash against doing so? So, like, if you were to say in school, for example, there must have been like people who enjoyed it, people who didn't enjoy it, and there must have been some sort of. Then again, you did come from a different decile than me, so what was your experience with that?
Yeah, so as I said, the prequels had an issue of focus in that it was made for both the people who liked the originals and have grown up, but then also it was supposed to be for the kids of that generation, so me.
Yeah,
Um, it did okay in that it was the sort of thing that we got to see with our parents, and our parents got to like it, we got to like it. When it came to Backlash, for example, Ahmed Best, the person who acted for Jar Jar Binks, he did the motion capture.
yeah,
It wasn't me and my friends who were like, Jar Jar Binks is terrible, all this stuff. He was definitely not a favorite character of
no.
anyone, but it was absolutely our parents who were like, why would they do that? Ugh, I can't believe they'd have this, among other things. For some people it's, this terrible racial caricature. For some people it was just such an annoying character. And, we were like, I just say I was 10, 12, whatever. We could discard those bad parts a lot easier.
Right,
We don't remember, Jar Jar Binks being a horrible character. We remember the big battle scene where the landers came down, opened up, and all the droids come out, and they're being attacked with catapults, and we was like, oh, this is cool, this is cool. And it let us just forget the stuff that people had problems with.
right.
It was adults who couldn't let go of that.
And so I think that brings us to the bullying essentially, because it was bullying of the different, especially people who the Jar Jar Binks motion capture guy in the voice,
Oh
young
yeah,
Anakin.
Ahmed Best almost, ended things.
Yeah,
Um,
because people can't just accept that. Yeah, no. So, and if you're asking, because I don't like the sequels. If you're asking if I've partaken that, no, I don't, and I stand firm with that. I've never said anything attacking. I've never left comments telling Ryan Johnson to kill himself, and I wouldn't, because it's not. There's things more important than movies and TV shows and characters. There's things more important than that, and one of them is life. And I don't think telling, like, for example, the actress that played Rose, who was a bit of a strange character in the sequels, was given a lot of hate, and they tried to make it a race thing when it was not really a race thing. It was more of a attack on the fact that she did something quite strange, which was stop Poe from, well, not Poe. Who's the storm? What's the stormtrooper's name? Because he calls himself Poe originally, and then Finn. So Finn, when he's trying to sacrifice himself to save the rebellion, she stops him, and it doesn't sort of make a lot of sense. But it it was their choice. It's their movie. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to watch it again. I'm not going to buy the merch. I'm not going to enjoy. I'm not going to do the stuff that I would normally do with Star Wars. So that's my response. Is I'm not going to buy into it. But you don't need to go out and attack people for making a movie. Anyway, let's get back to Kenobi because we had a big aside there. Um, so anything else that you had to that you wanted to clarify?
So, we were talking about attachments
Right.
and that sort of thing. How do you feel about the idea that when Obi-Wan tells Leia, like, you remind me of someone brave and stubborn, is he talking about Padme or Satine?
Uh, Probably Padme because um,
Because I immediately go, Padme.
Padme. Yeah.
But a lot of people who are more aware of the Star Wars legends are like, ooh, maybe Satine. Ooh.
So I mean, it could be both. They're both sort of similar characters. They were both pacifists. They were both politicians. They were both killed by Sith Lords. They were both very politically driven, very stubborn. Well, not stubborn. See, that's where I disagree with Obi-Wan's assessment. I think he wasn't
Leia
saying. I don't think Leia was stubborn. Yeah, I don't think
is also 10.
she's also 10. Yeah, I don't think I don't think Padme was part of that stubborn. I think he was trying to make a point to Leia that she was being stubborn. I think he was sort of just saying, God, she's so much like her mother. Politically driven, um, strong-willed.
So
Um,
kind of a compliment sandwich thing where you
yeah.
go, ah, yes, she reminded me of your mother. She was strong. She had this problem that you're showing right now. Knock it off. But she was good.
And
And then, of course, being a 10-year-old, it doesn't work. She focuses on the,
negative, yeah. And
which is believable.
I mean, the thing is, right? The thing is, I sort of, when I tried to watch The Mandalorian, a big part of it, the reason I never carried on, was I didn't lose myself the way I lose myself in some of the movies and the show and the Clone Wars. I didn't lose myself as well as I did in Kenobi. I lost myself a little bit because I was so invested in what was going to happen to Leia, and I was surprised by that after I looked back and I thought, I know what was going to happen to Leia. I I know she was going to get rescued, but I also didn't know when. So that
I
was a
suppose this is our argument for spoilers.
yeah.
Like, we have spoilers. We know Owen lives for a while. We knew he wasn't going to get his head cut off by the Thraver, because he's in The New Hope.
and we know that Luke
Did it
is
ruin it for you, that scene? Because you knew he'd live?
no,
Oh no.
because do you know what?
Was Ben going to
Genuinely,
stop it? Was that what you were thinking?
yeah, and genuinely, I was actually thinking, hold on, what are they going to do here? Because she's about to kill him and cut
Hmm.
him down and kill his family. And is he going to reveal Obi-Wan? Is he going to, there's lots of questions that come up.
Will he point out what was his name? Nari?
Yeah, I
The
can't
guy
remember his
who
name.
the other one, yeah. Was he going to point out that one to save Ben? Like, no, like, yeah. You know, yeah, you have the spoilers, you know the what, you still don't have the how.
Yeah,
The
and that's the
execution is
fun part. Yeah, and I think also so we need to talk about something that's quite controversial at the moment: the Grand Inquisitor getting stabbed in the stomach. So that sort of
Well, you were
is
saying he's not an actual Jedi, right?
no.
And she essentially is Raver.
Well, okay, so they can both. So all three
Um,
of them can use the Force. They're all Force sensitive.
I mean, she does mind probes and stuff. That feels strong.
Oh yeah, but that's just because the dark side is a very strong, uh, is a pathway to many abilities. Some consider
But
to
I
be
I don't
true.
see the Grand Inquisitor, the Master of the Inquisitorius, doing anything that strong.
Well, I think
His lightsaber's like automatic. I assume he's not as good with lightsabers. I feel like he
I think what they were
just didn't
doing.
have it coming.
I think what they're doing is they're setting out this lady to be the main, not the main villain, but the one who does Vader's bidding in this sort of war. And I expect, because she is the second or third sister, and I know
Third.
in third sister, and I know in the in Rebels there's a fourth sister, so that may give away what happens to her. I don't know. I think she may die in the series. I think, or she may get turned back to, or may get turned to the light side. I don't know. But what I do know is she's a very good character. Um, Anakin-like, I would say, very driven, very irrational, very emotional, but
So
very ambitious, and that's a beautiful
I
thing to see in a character.
I totally get the killing the Grand Inquisitor scene.
Right.
One in that this show loves irony. So she was about to capture Obi-Wan. He comes in and says, "You'll fail, I'll do it," and then she makes them both fail. That's ironic.
Yes, that is quite
But
funny. Yeah.
also, it's a trope where I forget the name for it, but it was mainly in Star Trek where this person needs to be strong, knock out a Klingon.
Right.
So she
Um.
needs to be made like she's the big bad for, or the primary antagonist, at least for this
Yeah.
part of the show.
Yeah.
Kill the Grand Inquisitor.
I.
Like it
I.
just
Wo-
sets her up
I wonder
quickly.
if. I wonder if the Grand Inquisitor will survive. And right now. There might be people shouting because episode 3 will be out by the time this releases, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, how could you not know?" Blah blah blah. Um, there's going to be some things that are obvious, like getting stabbed in the stomach might not kill him. She may end up just being because she's actually expelled from the Inquisitors
And don't
before.
lightsabers cauterize?
Yes, but he would
I
have
have
gotten
seen
stabbed through
a
the
fan theory.
spine.
Yeah. Well, I've
um,
seen a fan theory that the reason why projectile weapons don't exist in Star Wars, more or less, is because they're considered inhumane, just like we don't allow mines that are
chemicals,
designed to maim and not kill.
right? Or chemical weapons, or
Yeah, yeah. So there's a Star Wars Geneva Convention that means bullets aren't allowed, lightsabers are fine. You cut someone's hand off, they're gonna walk away
yeah,
in
like
pain.
like that old lady who decided to stand up to the the lightsaber wielding maniacs in the middle of Tatooine, just like
Oh, she barely stood up to her too. Just a little bit mouthy, and that's it.
it's quite funny though.
Um,
It was quite funny.
so we are approaching the end of our episode. So
Yes,
I suppose, um,
yes, we need
just
to.
highlights and lowlights. What parts did you go? Oh yeah, that's the stuff. And what parts did you go? Really, that's not for me.
So definitely a low light. I'll start with them. Definitely the Inquisitor getting stabbed confused the fuck out of me and knocked me out a little bit.
Okay.
Um, big a big kick for me, and this is just because I have a similar instinct. Is when Obi-Wan buys the toy for Luke. I
Oh
know that it eventually gets thrown back at him, but what I love,
no, Luke eventually gets it because he's Luke is seen playing with it in A New Hope.
right, and so, God, check. So, so what I love about that is it's sort of what I do with my nephews and nieces, because that's something I enjoy, is having, is giving to the kids and having kids enjoy things, and that's very important. And so I found that quite heartwarming. I found that quite touching, that Obi-Wan sort of feels this affinity to Luke and also feels this responsibility to Luke. And that's quite a sort of uncle-like figure. And so, anyway, Jag, what were your lowlights and highlights?
Um, I get it, but it doesn't fit what I like in media, where Obi-Wan has been not using the Force so that he can hide better for 10 years, and now he's not even sure he can pick up a child. Obi-Wan is strong. He gets strong again for New Hope, of course, but boy, he went incredibly rusty.
Right.
I just don't like seeing him that weak. I feel like he's too weak.
Right, yeah.
That's probably my low light. I get that he has to have that path where he gets stronger, and that's going to happen in the series, surely.
Yeah,
Like,
otherwise it's going to be quite a boring series.
there has to be room for growth.
Yeah.
In terms of lowlights, yeah, that's probably it. I wanted to see him be a bit cooler.
You wanted to see Obi-Wan chop down the Inquisitors? Or
I
the...
wanted him to take less than 20 shots to kill the dinosaur.
That was... I did like the dinosaur, that was quite funny.
Now, I do understand that in episode 3 of the movies,
Yeah.
he got his hands on a blaster and he's like, ugh, blasters, I hate these.
So
And
uncivilized.
so, yeah, like when he killed Grievous, yeah, uncivilized, that was it. And now he's a bit better because he can't use the Force in order to hide. So he's okay with using blasters now, but he still has the Force.
Yeah, so I think the
I
argument...
was expecting the lightsaber to be used by now. Like, they start shooting at the two of them. I expected him to whip out the lightsaber, flick a few back, and then Leia have that, oh wow. But instead he uses he struggles so hard, like, just catches her, and she's like, you're a Jedi. And it's like, that could have been a cooler, like,
Yeah.
reveal for her.
Yeah, I do agree that could have been a cooler reveal. Yeah. Highlight?
I mean, there's a few. It's a good first 2 episodes. I feel like the characterization of Owen is good.
Good, good.
I feel for him a lot more,
Right.
like as a person. Him hating Jedi, it makes sense. His snapback, oh, like you trained his father. Like, I get Owen now. I get him.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have much screen time, but yep. I'm on his side. The cameo from your boy and mine, Timawira Morrison. Moi. Beautiful.
Oh, that was
I feel like
awesome.
that was probably easy to miss. Because he does look so shaggy and drunk.
Yeah, drunk.
But
He looks like someone sitting outside a KFC in New Zealand. Yeah, I can say
yeah,
that.
but oh, it was lovely.
Yeah.
I feel that with Haja Estri, like as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, he's faking. Oh, he's faking. I'm not so sure about his redemption.
Kamal Nanjiani's character.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Although I did like his like, I will I will delay things, and his standoff where you finally found me. That was fun. And then because he doesn't actually know Jedi, the fact that he didn't know that should be like, hold up. All right, thank you.
yeah. Oh, thank you. That'll help me a lot. I had no idea where he was. Thanks.
I liked that. I liked that a lot. I mean, there's more stuff. There's so much like there are some. some peaks for all the grief I gave it for the stuff I don't like. And I like that we didn't like different things. Like, you're like, I don't like this, and I'm like, I thought that was good. So it just goes to show, like, it's just that different parts are for different people, really.
Yeah, it's for different fans because we all come in to Star Wars at different levels. Some of us have watched everything and read everything. Some of us have watched everything but not read everything. Some people have read things and watched things, and some people have just watched the movies. And that's important because when you come into a new series, you want to be gently put into it. You don't want to just be thrown in with a bunch of, oh shit, who the fuck are they? Who the fuck is this? What is this? You don't want that.
Oh, and I'll say, like I mentioned before, irony. I feel like there's going to be a lot of irony. Just when they're on Tatooine, and Reva, third sister, is like, "Why are we out here? We should be going for ObiWan. We need to go where he is, not this crappy little outer rim looking for Nari."
Scraps, yeah.
And then he's like around the corner, being like, "Ooh, they're here! Run, 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 run! We need to go find him. Go somewhere else. We need to look for him in the core worlds." And I suppose more of a neutral thing is, you're gonna have to help me out here. The gang world, Dooney or something.
Oh, I can't remember it.
Anyway,
Yeah,
at the moment, so every movie, every series is a product of its times. And at the moment, cyberpunk is cool.
Yes, I do.
So they go to the cyberpunk world to do cyberpunk things.
Yeah. That will look dated in a while, but when cyberpunk loses its cool. But anyway, that should be us for today. I didn't expect.
Did you say your highlights?
Yeah, I did. I didn't expect us to actually get.
It was a very short call forward.
Um,
Chekhov's gun. Here's a gun. Shoot someone with it.
So, okay, we'll wrap up there. So, thank you for listening for this long. We'd like to.
We hope you've listened this
long. We hope you've listened this long because we put a lot of effort into these episodes. Lol. Jag had to watch a whole 2-hour series last night. Okay, so
it does D plus just for this.
Yeah.
I expect free compensation.
It cost me money. I totally didn't pirate it. No. Okay. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and on Instagram, as I said before, if you enjoy this content, and to join in the conversation, start arguing with us because we love that. Jag loves to argue with people. So thank you for listening, and goodbye.